Hello and welcome to the Life After 50 show. Happy Monday morning. My name is Catherine. I am the author of Help, My Parents Are Aging, and Help, I Can't Do This Alone. And I've started this show Life After 50 because there's a lot of information those of us after 50 need to know. Hold on just a minute. I lost part of my earphone, so let me put that back in. Okay, there we go. So I started this show back in February to help families and help people who are over 50 who are trying to navigate so many different areas of their life. Lots of changes are happening. Today, we're going to be talking about something that is near and dear to my heart. We're going to be talking about Alzheimer's disease and other types of dementia. And we're going to be talking about how to cope when you have somebody that you care for with this disease. It's not an easy one. There's a lot of challenges and a lot of confusion around it. And we're going to bring on a guest today to help cut through that confusion. Some of you may be showing up today to see Bob DeMarco. He was supposed to be our guest today, but due to unforeseen circumstances, Bob will not be joining us today. I do, however, have a wonderful guest I'm really excited to bring on. Her name is QianaJoi James, and she owns a company called Friendly Faces Home Care. But more than being in the business, she has firsthand experience. Like a number of people in this industry were kind of guided into this business, I think. I know I certainly was, and I think Qiana will probably tell you the same. Her dad has dementia, and she helps to care for him. So she's going to be able to speak to you from both the caregiver perspective and from an industry professional. So it's kind of a 1-2 punch, and I'm really excited to be able to have her on the show to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Qiana up here and let's get the conversation started. If you have questions, please put them in the comment section below. I'll see them and I'll go ahead and bring your comments up to the top so that, especially if you have a question, we can ask Qiana and see what she has to say about it. All right, let's get started. Qiana, come on up to the top. And there she is. Hi. Thank you so much for jumping in and being on the show today. We're really excited to have you here because I know you have a wealth of knowledge.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Is there anything else that I failed to mention about you that you would like the visitors to know?
Oh, no, I'm just passionate when it comes to seniors, and this is such a wonderful industry to be in. We get to meet so many great individuals and hear so many compelling stories.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So again, our topic today is coping, communicating, and confusion around dementia. So let's talk about the beginning stages, Qiana. So when somebody first starts developing some symptoms and maybe a family member is starting to wonder what's going on, and possibly the word dementia has not even entered their mind. They may be frustrated. They may think that the person is being manipulative or they're being just impossible to deal with, impossible mom or impossible dad, or their spouse is being impossible. Let's talk about that for a minute, if you would, please.
Okay, yes. And each person that's experiencing this type of symptom, it affects them all differently. So everyone will have a different story. I'll just start by talking about my family's experience with my father, because that word was not mentioned and we had no idea what was going on. My father has always been a very independent person, I can do this, I'm going to do all I want to do. There's always been all kinds of things going on with him. So when he started making decisions that were way not normal, we thought it was just part of what his personality was. We had no idea that he was starting to have some type of cognitive disorder. So in our particular case, one of the telltale signs were actually two things. One, early on, and this was probably, I want to say maybe 15 to 20 years ago,
Wow.
maybe a little bit more. I'd have to ask my mom. He started giving money away to people.
Oh.
He's always been into business. He's always, it's my way or the highway type of individual. So we just thought this was part of who he was. But it just progressively got worse and worse and worse. It got to a point that he had given away thousands of dollars, and he was on all of these scam lists, people in Russia, China, and Africa, all of these places all over the world. They were constantly sending him advertisements, constantly calling him. And for the average person looking at that, it makes absolutely no sense. Like, of course, I'm not going to give you this amount of money and expect for you to give me this return. It makes absolutely no sense. But for someone with some type of cognitive impairment, it can make sense to them. And so for my father, he started doing things like that. That was one. And it got to the point that my mom had to this day, change the mail, and she has to have a P.O. box. Because every now and then there's something that will slip in and he will still get it and think he's going to make all this money if he writes this check. So that was the first thing for us. And then what slowly started happening is he started getting lost while he was driving. And it would just be like, oh, I can't find my way here or there. We didn't think too much of it, but progressively it got worse and worse, to the point that the last time that he drove, he was trying to go to some interview in Galveston. He got lost in the southeast part of Houston, and we had to tell him to stop where he was, street signs, and I had to physically go over there, get him, and he had to follow me home. That was the last time he drove. And it was at that point when we started realizing there's something that's going on here.
Yeah.
So for the family, it could be all.
I'm sorry, when was that? You mentioned that you saw some of the symptoms start about 15 years ago. When was that you finally realized that something was going on? How long did it take before the family started really saying, hey, there's something serious going on here?
Yeah, so I think as far as the mailing, I think that was about 15 to 20 years ago. So it was probably about in the last 15 years. And I try to map it based on how long I've been married. So I want to say within the last 15 years when that actually started happening about the driving. Somewhere between, probably around 15 years ago.
Okay. And I think that's something important to bring out, because I don't think families realize how long this disease can go on and can affect the person and their family. I mean, the fact that he was giving away all of this money, that has an impact on the whole family. So that's really important. I love that you brought that up, because I think that is something that maybe families who are beginning to suspect that there might be a problem, these are some things that they want to look at. They want to look at, is mom or dad getting a lot of junk mail, and are they responding as the same companies? And, I never thought of that either. And now looking back as we're talking here, and I've dealt with this for a long time, but it never clicked until just now. My mother-in-law was doing the same thing in small amounts. She wasn't giving away real big amounts, so I guess it didn't signal the red flag. But man, she was on every list, and they still send us stuff. And she's been deceased for several years now, and we still get stuff in the mail from some of the lists that she was on. So
another thing is charities as well.
Yes.
They would give away money to all types of charities. I was talking to a friend that's a geriatric care manager, and she said that one of her clients gave away $750,000 to the church.
Wow. Yeah, it's a huge issue to look at. I know with my own mother, she would give away money to people. In fact, she got hooked up with a group that what they did was they took her recording of her voice on the phone, and they spliced together the words to make it look like she had given them permission to take money out of her account every month. And she
Wow.
was on an automatic withdrawal. It wasn't a whole lot of money, but then my mother didn't have a whole lot of money. So they were really taking her livelihood when my sisters found out. And all they could do was close down the bank account and start another one. And then it happened again. And they closed down that account and started another one until finally we just completely had to stop her from having any credit cards or bank account numbers or any of that, because she did not remember not, to tell the people that she wasn't going to give them this information. So, it's a big problem, and one that families need to be aware of. And like you said, it can start so many years in advance.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think one of the other problems that I know we dealt with and a lot of families deal with is trying to correct somebody with Alzheimer's. No,
Yeah.
Mom, that's not the way it is. No, don't you remember? No, that's not, we do this. And it's like beating our head up against a brick wall because they don't get it. And it just causes frustration. Can you give us some solutions for some better ways to handle this?
Yeah, and that's natural. There are times when I still do that and I know better. I know I'm not going to get anywhere, but it's a natural human tendency to do that. So the thing about it, and I have this conversation with my mom, I have this conversation with families, you're not going to win the argument. You're not going to win the battle.
So true.
It's not going to happen. So even though you're frustrated, try not to get emotional about it. Try not to take it personal, which is harder to say than to do. Just try not to, and just concentrate on the fact that they do have an impairment and that you have to go into their world. Mm-hmm. So we play a lot of mind games, little loving lies, mm-hmm. I say, at many times to try to get a task accomplished that you need to get accomplished. So instead of saying, do you remember this? Or no, you can ask them a question, or mm-hmm. you can say different things to try to get them to do something that you need them to do without telling them no. They hate to be told what to do. I know that's
Who does? Who wants to be told no, Qiana? None of us do. We don't like that.
My father will say to my mom many times, I'm not a child. I'm the man of this house.
That's right.
So sometimes you have to make suggestions. One thing that helps, and each person, like I said, each person is different. So when we're going in and we're going to work with a client, we'll do an assessment, we'll talk with them, and we can kind of fill out what may or may not work. And mm-hmm. so many family members have learned this on their own, just based on the personality of their loved one. So get to know their loved one. You can try different things and take mental notes. Okay, I tried this and it had a positive effect. I tried that and it had a negative effect. And then you just want to replicate that. So mm-hmm. with my father in particular, he's always been a person that he loved to help others. That made him feel important. So down to this day, if my mom's like, don't put that on, you don't need to wear that, XYZ, he's going to be like, I'm going to do what I want to do. But if I go in there and say, oh, Papa, I need you to help me with something, I really want you to wear this, but I don't know. I think it'll look good on you. What do you think? I kind of start going into his world. Or sometimes I might make him feel guilty. Oh, I really need you. Oh, would you just do it for me? I know you don't want to do it. You don't have to do it. I know it's up to you. So I'll play mind games with him. And like in many occasions, okay, I'll do it for you. Sometimes with our caregivers, if we'll tell them if they're trying to get the clients to do something that they don't want to do. Sometimes it may work, it may not. We can tell them, oh, well, if you don't do this, I'm going to get in trouble, or I might get fired, or I'm going to get in trouble by my boss. And then they'll be like, oh, well, I don't want you to get in trouble. Let me go ahead and do it. Mm-hmm. So learn the person that you're dealing with, your loved one, and see what works and what doesn't work. And then keep mental notes of that and then just replicate.
That is so true. You know, when my mother-in-law just refused to drink water, she hated it. She didn't like it. We put every flavor in it. We tried everything. She just wasn't going to drink water or juice or anything like that. The only thing she liked was coffee. So finally, one of her caregivers got the smart idea to put water in the coffee cup. And guess what? She drank it. Yeah. And it was amazing. So we started, you know, we'd give her a cup of coffee in the morning, but then the rest of the day we'd put water in the coffee cup and she would drink it. Not all the time, but most of the time. So yeah, you have to learn what works with your particular person. Like you said, every situation is different. There's over 100 different types of dementia to begin with. So Alzheimer's is the one that most people think of, but there's over 100 different types of dementia out there, and each one of them presents a little bit differently, and each person is a unique individual, and they're going to react differently. So you just kind of have to get to know that person, and that's why it's important to bring in caregivers, I think, early to help the family. Because then you can help them start developing a relationship with those caregivers, and they get to know each other. They get to know one another, know their little habits, their idiosyncrasies, their likes and dislikes, and all of that. And I think that's a big plus. And
you mentioned something very, very important, because whether they have some type of cognitive impairment like dementia, or just being a senior in general, it's so good to establish routine. With our older generation, they're very set in routines. It's different from our generation today. So getting them into a routine, if you change their routine, it will aggravate them, it will agitate them. So getting them into a routine. So if you start noticing that your loved one has some type of impairment, you said it right. Being proactive, getting caregivers in there, getting something set up so that that can just fit into their routine.
Yes, routines are huge. Whoops, I'm getting some reverb. There we go. Okay, I think it cleared up. Routines are huge. I wrote a blog about this just recently. Having a set time gives somebody a sense of comfort because they're losing a lot. They're losing a lot of their abilities, and they know it. There's a part of them, I believe, that knows what's going on. They may not fully understand it, but they know that something is not right. Having a routine helps to bring some comfort because we know what's going to happen next. Our body actually picks up on that routine and is able to react. So it's really important to establish those routines. I know that sometimes the routine's going to get thrown off. Life happens. But for the most part, if you can have a good routine for the day-to-day activities, it's going to make your life and their life so much easier. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I know there's some people that are watching the show. Let me see if anybody, we've got some, Tanya Christopher Childress says, great job, Qiana. Thank you so much for coming on the show. There's a bunch of other people that look like they're watching. If you have questions, please feel free. If you want to talk about a particular subject related to this, go ahead and put a comment in there. We'll be glad to put it up on the screen and talk to you and answer any questions that you may have. You know, with my mother-in-law, one of the things that I used to tell my husband all the time was go with the flow. Yeah. And it's easier when you're not the child or you're not the spouse, okay? I dealt with it with my mom, and then I dealt with it with my mother-in-law, and it's a whole different ball game. I loved my mother-in-law dearly, but it's a different type of connection. And that's why having a paid caregiver coming in, I think is helpful because they're going to have a different kind of connection. They're not going to have the baggage that you have with your parent and the history and all of that. So sometimes they'll be able to get your parent to do something that you've been trying and knocking yourself out for weeks to try and get them to do. and they're able to do it really relatively easily. And it's because of that.
We see that all the time.
Yeah.
We'll come in and they're like, oh my gosh, they've never done that before. It's something about an outside person
Exactly.
that can move them to do it. And sometimes what we'll notice is over time, then they'll stop doing what the caregiver wants them to do because that person becomes familiar. And if you kind of change the person around, then they will respond to that outside person. So it's very interesting how that happens.
I definitely agree with that. I think that is so important. So, what else do we need to talk about, Qiana?
I think it's very important to talk about that main caregiver. They're the ones who take the worst of it, dealing with their loved one. They're doing the most for that person. And in many cases, it's that spouse or it's one or two of the children. It's very rare. And I have seen occasions where the family has shared the load, but most occasions it comes down to one, maybe two of those siblings that's doing most of it. And so they have a lot of stresses that they're dealing with. They're trying to take care of this loved one. Many times they may have children of their own. They have jobs, careers. It's just a lot going on. And then while they're doing all of this and making all of these sacrifices, sometimes it's time, also finances, a lot of times relationships, because they're having bad relationship with their other children or with other family members, in many cases with their own spouses, because they're trying to take care of mom. And then on top of all that, the behavior that's reciprocated to them by their loved one, that they're making all of these sacrifices, they get the worst of it. Many times they get told, they get shouted at, they may try to hit them. I know in my mom's case, my father is always constantly talking bad to her, and sometimes she just gets downright emotional. Yeah, because it's a lot. Go ahead.
What I used to tell my husband, because his mother would a lot of times lash out at him. She would lash out at me because we were the ones that were caring for her most of the time. And I used to tell him, just remember, she's going to lash out at the people that she is most connected to, the ones that she knows are not going to give up on her. And she knew that we were not going to give up on her no matter what, and we were going to be there. So it was okay to lash out at us. It doesn't make it a whole lot easier, but it does help a little bit, I think. And so when that would happen, luckily with my husband, we kind of tag teamed it. So when she would be lashing out at him, I'd tell him, step back, go away, I'll be here. And we would tag team that way. But, and then sometimes we both needed to step back and just let the caregivers take care of it because we were getting too close and too emotional about what was going on. And the more we got upset and emotional, the more she would jump in and get more upset and emotional. It feeds. People feed on that. So that's really important.
It's just downright dangerous to care for that person.
It is.
The level of burnout, caregiver burnout. So it's so important. And I'm always urging families, take some time to yourself. Even if, let's say, caregiving can be a costly option, so it may not be a permanent option for someone. Maybe it's 1 day a week, 2 hours a day. Some type of break. You have to take a mental break. You have to go away. I know for my mom, many times it's just her going to the nail shop.
Exactly.
And that's a break for her. But you have to take a break. You have to decompress. You have to remember why you're doing what you're doing to begin with, in order for you to properly be able to care for that loved one. Because you said it, if everyone's stressed out, they're going to feel that, and it's just going to be a domino effect.
Exactly. And then you're not the best caregiver. You're not doing the job that you really want to do. And I think that causes a lot of guilt inside because we know when we're not being the best caregiver, when we lash out at our loved one and then we feel guilty. Oh my gosh, I shouldn't have lashed out. It's not their fault. They don't understand. And we get in this cycle, and that is not helpful to anyone. So if you get nothing else out of this conversation today, get the takeaway that you have got to get someone in to help you, whether it's a friend, a family member, or somebody that you hire to come in, but you have got to get a break.
Yes.
It's something that can go on for a long time, and you've got to, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So this disease can go on for a long time. Yeah. Yeah. Qiana, thank you so much for showing up today. I really, really appreciate it. Guys, her website, again, I'm going to put it back up again for those of you who didn't see it before, friendlyfaces.com. You can't go wrong with this company. She's been, how long have you been in business? About 4 years now?
I'm in my 5th year of operation.
Yeah. So she is doing an excellent job out there. The reputation precedes her. And, if you need some care and some help in the Houston area, I would definitely recommend talking to Qiana. Thank you again for showing up on the program today. And I'm going to go ahead and bring her down to the lobby. And I just want to talk about what's coming up. So we have got a lot of new shows coming up. Next week, we're going to be talking about Medicare. We've got Toni King coming on. She is a Medicare expert. If you haven't heard Toni King speak before, you need to show up for this show. She's written several books on Medicare and will help walk you through. So bring your questions. Come on and let's find out about Medicare so we can get the right plans to help us, to help our loved ones, and to move forward in our 50 plus years. I'm Catherine Watson. This is the Life After 50 show. Thank you for showing up today. Please feel free to share this with your friends and coworkers. Somebody out there that you know has somebody with dementia that they're caring for. So share the information and let's help one another. Thanks again, and thanks again to Qiana.